March 15, 1943, North Atlantic, 400 miles southwest of Iceland. Kapitän-Leutnant Heinrich Braumann raises his periscope through choppy gray waters, expecting to find another scattered merchant vessel limping alone across the convoy routes. What he sees instead makes him question his own instruments. 67 ships stretching across the horizon in perfect formation. Liberty ships, tankers, and cargo vessels moving in disciplined columns with destroyer escorts weaving protective patterns around the massive fleet. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. U-571 had stalked these waters for 3 weeks, sinking isolated merchantmen with methodical precision. Single ships, easy targets, quick kills. The mathematics of submarine warfare that had terrorized Allied shipping for nearly 4 years. But this morning, staring through his periscope at the largest convoy formation he had ever witnessed, Braumann realized the war at sea had fundamentally changed while his wolf pack hunted scattered prey. The transformation began in American shipyards, where industrial capacity met desperate necessity. By March 1943, 18 major shipyards from Maine to California were launching Liberty ships faster than German submarines could sink them. The Kaiser shipyards in Richmond, California, had perfected assembly line techniques that produced complete merchant vessels in an average of 42 days. Record-breaking launches occurred weekly, with the SS Robert E. Peary completed in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes from keel laying to launch. German naval intelligence had tracked American shipbuilding efforts through aerial reconnaissance, intercepted communications, and reports from neutral shipping. The numbers appeared manageable. Individual ships launched, scattered across multiple yards, destined for various theaters. What German planners failed to grasp was the strategic coordination that would marshal these vessels into convoy formations of unprecedented size and complexity. Admiral Karl Donitz, commander of the German submarine fleet, had built his strategy around the concept of tonnage warfare. Sink merchant ships faster than the enemy could replace them. Force Britain to surrender through starvation and industrial collapse. The mathematics seemed simple. German shipyards could produce submarines faster than Allied forces could build escorts. Wolfpack tactics would overwhelm scattered convoys through coordinated attacks. The strategy had succeeded brilliantly during the first 3 years of war. Operation Drumbeat, launched in January 1942, brought German submarines to American coastal waters where they found undefended shipping lanes and cities that refused to dim their lights. Captain Reinhard Hartigan in U-123 sank 24 ships in a single patrol, watching Manhattan's skyline illuminate targets for his torpedo attacks. But the industrial mathematics that favored Germany in 1940 had reversed by 1943. American shipyards were completing merchant vessels at rates that exceeded German submarine production by factors that defied pre-war calculations. Henry J. Kaiser's revolutionary construction methods had transformed shipbuilding from craftsmanship to mass production. Welding replaced riveting. Prefabricated sections reduced construction time. Standardized designs eliminated engineering delays. The numbers told a story that German intelligence struggled to believe. In 1942, American yards launched 746 merchant ships totaling 8.3 million tons. German submarines sank 1,664 Allied vessels that same year. But the mathematics of replacement had begun favoring American production. By 1943, the gap would become an industrial chasm that no amount of submarine warfare could bridge. Oberleutnant Sergei Werner Kellner commanded U-193 during the convoy battles of spring 1943. His war diary, recovered from German archives decades later, recorded the growing frustration of submarine crews who found their tactical advantages neutralized by sheer numbers. We approached what appeared to be a moderate convoy of perhaps 20 vessels. Upon closer observation, the formation extended beyond visual range in all directions. Ship after ship in disciplined columns. Our attack procedures, developed for smaller targets, proved inadequate for formations of this magnitude. The convoy system that emerged in 1943 represented more than numerical superiority. American naval planners had studied German wolfpack tactics and developed countermeasures that transformed merchant shipping from vulnerable targets into protected formations. Convoy SC-122, departing New York in March 1943, included 61 merchant ships carrying 140,000 tons of cargo destined for British ports. The escort force assigned to SC-122 demonstrated the evolution of Allied naval thinking. 2 destroyers, 4 corvettes, and a rescue ship provided close protection. Long-range aircraft from Iceland and Greenland extended air cover previously unavailable in mid-Atlantic waters. High-frequency direction-finding equipment allowed escort commanders to track German radio communications and anticipate submarine positions. Captain Ernst Vogelsang in U-132 discovered the effectiveness of these new escort arrangements during an attack on convoy HX-229 in late March. His approach, which had succeeded against smaller formations throughout 1942, met coordinated resistance from multiple escort vessels using tactics specifically developed to counter wolfpack operations. Depth charge patterns forced his submarine to deep water, where sonar contact with the convoy became impossible. The technological evolution accompanying large convoy formations surprised German crews who had enjoyed technical advantages during the war's early years. American escort vessels carried radar systems that detected surfaced submarines at ranges exceeding visual contact. Sonar equipment had improved to provide precise underwater targeting data. Communications gear allowed convoy commodores to coordinate defensive maneuvers across formations spanning dozens of square miles. Korvettenkapitän Hans-Joachim Schwantka, commanding the Wolfpack Stürmer in April 1943, reported to German naval headquarters about the challenges posed by large convoy formations. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means individual submarine attacks, previously successful against scattered merchant shipping, proved ineffective against coordinated formations protected by enhanced escort forces. The tactical manual developed for smaller convoys required complete revision for formations exceeding 50 vessels. The Liberty Ship program represented American industrial philosophy applied to maritime warfare. Standardized construction, mass production techniques, and coordinated logistics created a shipbuilding capacity that overwhelmed German submarine construction. The SS Jeremiah O'Brien, launched from South Portland, Maine in June 1943, represented the 1,500th Liberty ship completed since the program's inception. German prisoners captured from submarine attacks on these massive convoys provided intelligence that shocked Nazi naval planners. Seaman Klaus Brenner, rescued from U-175 after its sinking by Coast Guard cutter Spencer, described convoy formations that exceeded anything German intelligence had predicted. Ships stretched beyond the horizon. Escort vessels numbered in double digits. Air cover provided protection throughout daylight hours. The psychological impact on German submarine crews proved as significant as the tactical challenges. Kapitänleutnant Siegfried Keutschke, commander of U-616, wrote in his personal journal about the demoralizing effect of encountering convoy formations that dwarfed his submarine's attack capabilities. We had become accustomed to hunting individual prey. These massive formations made us feel like minnows attacking whales. The courage required to approach 60 ships protected by determined escorts exceeded anything our training had prepared us for. American convoy commodores, typically experienced merchant marine officers, developed sophisticated tactical procedures for managing formations of unprecedented size. Commodore Harold Manning, leading convoy ON-202 in May 1943, coordinated the movements of 73 ships across formation frontages exceeding 20 miles. Radio communications, visual signals, and predetermined maneuvers allowed these massive formations to execute course changes and defensive patterns with precision that impressed even experienced naval officers. The escort carrier program provided convoy protection that fundamentally altered the strategic balance of Atlantic warfare. USS Bogue, the first escort carrier assigned to convoy duty, carried 28 aircraft capable of providing air cover throughout the mid-Atlantic gap where land-based planes could not reach. German submarines, which had exploited this gap for nearly 3 years, suddenly faced aerial attack hundreds of miles from the nearest Allied airfield. Lieutenant Commander William Dufek, commanding Torpedo Squadron VC-19 aboard USS Card, recorded the dramatic change in submarine warfare dynamics. Our aircraft could patrol convoy formations spanning 40 square miles. German submarines, forced to remain submerged during daylight hours, lost their mobility and tactical flexibility. Wolfpack coordination became impossible when individual submarines could not surface to communicate or reposition for coordinated attacks. The intelligence gathered from intercepted German communications revealed the growing desperation of submarine crews facing convoy formations they had never encountered. Radio intercepts from U-boat headquarters showed increasing concern about attack success rates that had plummeted from the devastating levels of 1942. Admiral Donutz's war diary, captured after Germany's surrender, documented the strategic crisis facing German naval forces. Convoy losses, which had reached catastrophic levels during 1942, declined dramatically as formation sizes increased and escort effectiveness improved. The statistics told a story of strategic transformation. In March 1943, Allied shipping losses dropped to 627,000 tons compared to 881,000 tons lost in November 1942. German submarine losses, meanwhile, increased to levels that made Wolfpack operations unsustainable. U-boat commander Friedrich Wilhelm Wissmann, captured after U-518 sinking in April 1943, provided detailed intelligence about German tactical challenges. The submarines that had terrorized individual merchant ships found themselves overwhelmed by convoy formations protected by escort groups specifically trained to counter Wolfpack tactics. Depth charge attacks, coordinated by multiple escort vessels, created killing zones that forced submarines to abandon attack positions. The training programs developed for convoy escort personnel reflected the evolution of anti-submarine warfare. The British Anti-Submarine Warfare School at HMS Osprey trained escort commanders in tactics specifically designed for large convoy protection. American destroyer schools provided similar instruction, emphasizing coordination between multiple escort vessels and effective use of radar and sonar equipment. The weather conditions that had favored German submarine operations during winter months became tactical disadvantages when facing large convoy formations. Storm systems that scattered smaller convoys allowed organized formations to maintain protective integrity through coordinated seamanship. Convoy commodores like Captain Reginald Sherwood, leading formation HX-237, developed heavy weather procedures that kept 60 ship formations intact through Atlantic storms that would have scattered individual vessels. German submarine crew morale, which had remained high through the devastating attacks of 1942, began declining as convoy formations grew larger and more effectively protected. Personal letters intercepted from submarine personnel revealed growing doubts about their mission's feasibility. Obermaschinist Kurt Heidel, serving aboard U-230, wrote to his wife about convoy encounters that left his crew feeling helpless against formations too large and well defended for successful attack. The Liberty ship construction program achieved production rates that transformed maritime warfare economics. By summer 1943, American shipyards were launching merchant vessels faster than German submarines could sink them, even during successful convoy attacks. The mathematics of tonnage warfare, which had favored Germany during 1940–1942, now overwhelmingly supported Allied shipping replacement capabilities. Captain James Robertson, master of the Liberty ship SS William Hooper, described convoy formations from the merchant marine perspective. Sailing in company with 60 other vessels provided security that individual ships had never enjoyed. The escort screen, air cover, and coordinated defensive procedures created protection levels that made German submarine attacks extremely hazardous undertakings. The psychological comfort of sailing in formation cannot be understated for crews who had previously faced submarine threats alone. The technological innovations accompanying large convoy operations included communication systems that allowed formation commanders to coordinate defensive maneuvers across ships separated by miles of ocean. Radio telephone equipment, improved signal procedures, and standardized tactical responses created command and control capabilities that German intelligence had underestimated. Convoy rescue procedures, developed specifically for large formations, minimized casualties when German attacks succeeded. Rescue ships positioned within convoy formations could recover survivors without disrupting the formation's defensive integrity. Medical personnel distributed among escort vessels provided immediate care for wounded survivors. These procedures, tested during convoy battles of spring 1943, saved hundreds of lives during subsequent submarine attacks. The strategic implications of large convoy formations extended beyond immediate tactical advantages. German submarine construction, already strained by Allied bombing of shipyards and material shortages, could not match the production rates required to maintain pressure against formations of this size. The fundamental economics of submarine warfare had shifted decisively in favor of Allied shipping protection. Naval intelligence analysis, conducted by both German and Allied staffs, confirmed the strategic transformation. German submarines, which had sunk over 3,000 Allied vessels during 1942, faced convoy formations that required coordinated attacks by multiple wolf packs to achieve significant results. The tactical coordination required for such attacks exceeded German submarine communication capabilities in the face of Allied electronic warfare measures. The shock of encountering massive convoy formations rippled through German submarine bases from Lorient to Bergen as returning U-boat crews described formations that defied every tactical manual written since 1939. Kapitän zur See Viktor Schütze, commander of the 2nd U-boat flotilla, received increasingly disturbing reports from patrol commanders who had witnessed convoy operations that exceeded German naval planning assumptions by orders of magnitude. Oberleutnant zur See Reinhard Suren returned to La Pallice in April 1943 aboard U-564 with detailed observations of convoy ONS-5, a formation that included 43 merchant ships protected by an escort group larger than entire German destroyer flotillas. His patrol report documented tactical challenges that rendered standard Wolfpack procedures obsolete. The convoy extended beyond visual range from any single observation point. Escort vessels maintained sonar contact throughout submerged approaches. Aircraft coverage eliminated surface positioning opportunities essential for coordinated attacks. The industrial reality behind these formations became apparent through intelligence gathered from captured merchant seamen and intercepted communications. The Bethlehem Fairfield shipyard in Baltimore had achieved construction rates that launched completed Liberty ships every 4 days during peak production periods. Welding techniques, prefabricated assembly methods, and round-the-clock shift operations created shipbuilding capacity that exceeded German submarine construction by ratios approaching 10-to-1. German naval architects studying captured Liberty ship blueprints discovered construction methods that prioritized speed over traditional craftsmanship standards. Standardized components, simplified designs, and mass production techniques had transformed merchant shipbuilding from individual projects to industrial processes. The technological philosophy represented American manufacturing capabilities applied to maritime warfare with results that German planners had failed to anticipate. The escort vessels protecting these massive formations demonstrated parallel innovations in anti-submarine warfare technology. Destroyer escorts like USS England carried sonar equipment capable of detecting submarines at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards. Depth charge projectors could deliver explosive patterns covering areas large enough to threaten submarines attempting to penetrate convoy formations. Radio direction finding gear allowed escort commanders to intercept German communications and triangulate submarine positions. Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee, commanding U-201 during convoy battles of May 1943, described the psychological impact of facing formations protected by escort groups using coordinated tactics specifically developed to counter Wolfpack operations. Individual submarines, which had operated with tactical superiority throughout 1940–1942, found themselves hunted by escort vessels equipped with detection gear and weapon systems that eliminated submarine advantages in night surface attacks. The training facilities established for convoy escort personnel reflected the systematic approach Allied naval forces brought to large formation protection. The Royal Navy's Western Approaches Tactical Unit at Liverpool developed simulation exercises using scale models to train escort commanders in convoy defense procedures. American destroyer schools at Newport and Norfolk provided intensive instruction in anti-submarine warfare techniques specifically designed for protecting formations exceeding 50 vessels. Captain Frederick Walker, commanding the 2nd Escort Group aboard HMS Starling, pioneered tactical innovations that maximized escort effectiveness against submarine attacks on large convoys. His group developed coordinated search patterns, mutual support procedures, and communication protocols that allowed 4 or 5 escort vessels to provide protective coverage for convoy formations spanning areas exceeding 100 square miles. The mathematical complexity of managing formations containing 60 or more merchant ships required navigation and communication procedures that exceeded anything attempted in peacetime merchant marine operations. Convoy commodores, selected from experienced merchant marine officers, received specialized training in formation management, radio communications, and emergency procedures. Commodore Kenelm Creighton, leading convoy SC-129 through North Atlantic waters in June 1943, coordinated the movements of 57 ships using signal procedures and tactical formations adapted from naval fleet operations. German submarine crews, accustomed to attacking isolated merchant vessels or small convoy formations, discovered that large convoy operations created defensive advantages that neutralized traditional Wolfpack tactics. U-boat ace Otto Kretschmer, captured after U-99 sinking in 1941, had achieved devastating success against scattered shipping using night surface attacks and precise torpedo fire. By 1943, such tactics proved suicidal against formations protected by radar-equipped escorts and continuous air coverage. The technological evolution of convoy escort operations included innovations that German submarine designers had not anticipated. Escort carriers like USS Guadalcanal carried aircraft equipped with radar, sonar buoys, and depth charges specifically designed for anti-submarine warfare. These floating airfields extended air coverage throughout the mid-Atlantic gap where German submarines had previously operated without aerial interference. Lieutenant Richard Gold, piloting TBF Avengers from USS Core, described the dramatic change in submarine warfare dynamics from the aircrew perspective. German submarines, forced to remain submerged throughout daylight hours, lost the mobility essential for Wolfpack coordination. Surface communications became impossible. Attack positions required underwater approaches that consumed battery power and limited tactical flexibility. The convoy routing procedures developed by Allied naval intelligence created additional challenges for German submarine operations. The Submarine Tracking Room in London, directed by Commander Roger Wynne, analyzed intercepted German communications to plot submarine positions and route convoys through areas with minimal U-boat concentrations. Large convoy formations, which might appear to offer better targets for submarine attacks, actually received routing priority that minimized contact with known submarine patrol areas. German naval intelligence, struggling to comprehend the scale of Allied convoy operations, received reports from submarine commanders that seemed to exaggerate formation sizes and escort strength. Admiral Karl Donitz initially dismissed reports of 60-ship convoys as observational errors or propaganda exaggerations. The systematic nature of these reports from experienced submarine commanders eventually forced German naval staff to acknowledge tactical realities that invalidated pre-war submarine warfare doctrine.
The weather routing services available to large convoy formations provided operational advantages that individual merchant ships had never enjoyed. The Allied Meteorological Service provided detailed forecasting that allowed convoy commodores to avoid severe weather systems while maintaining formation integrity. Storm avoidance, previously impossible for scattered shipping, became standard procedure for organized formations with sufficient advance warning and coordinated navigation capabilities. Kapitänleutnant Günther Hessler, Admiral Donit's son-in-law and experienced U-boat commander, documented the strategic implications of large convoy operations in his post-war analysis of submarine warfare. The tactical advantages that had made German submarines the dominant force in Atlantic warfare during 1940–1942 were systematically eliminated by convoy formations too large and well protected for traditional wolfpack attacks to achieve decisive results. The rescue procedures developed for large convoy operations minimized casualties when German submarine attacks succeeded in torpedoing merchant vessels. Hospital ships positioned within convoy formations could provide immediate medical attention to survivors. Rescue vessels carried medical personnel, emergency supplies, and communication equipment that allowed rapid response to submarine attacks. These procedures, tested during convoy battles throughout 1943, reduced casualty rates significantly compared to losses among individual merchant ships. The communication systems linking convoy formations to shore-based headquarters provided tactical intelligence that German submarine commanders had not encountered during earlier operations. High-frequency radio equipment allowed convoy commodores to receive updated information about submarine positions, weather conditions, and routing changes. This real-time intelligence eliminated the isolation that had made individual merchant ships vulnerable to submarine attack. German submarine construction, already strained by material shortages and Allied bombing of shipyards, could not match the production rates required to maintain effective pressure against convoy formations of increasing size and sophistication. The Type 7 submarines that had dominated Atlantic warfare required 18 months from keel laying to operational deployment. American Liberty ship construction achieved completion in 6 weeks using mass production techniques. The fuel consumption calculations for wolfpack operations against large convoys revealed logistical challenges that German naval planners had underestimated. Submarines required extended patrol periods to intercept formations following unpredictable routing schedules. Battery power limitations forced submarines to surface for recharging in waters patrolled by escort aircraft. Fuel capacity constraints reduced operational endurance for submarines operating at extended ranges from base. Convoy escort training programs established at bases throughout Britain and North America produced officers specifically qualified in large formation protection procedures.
Radio equipment manufacturers produced communication gear specifically designed for convoy operations. Radar manufacturers developed detection systems optimized for escort vessel requirements. Sonar equipment production expanded to meet the demands of escort groups protecting increasingly large formations. Captain Gilbert Roberts, director of the Western Approaches Tactical Unit, developed training simulations that allowed escort commanders to practice convoy defense procedures using scale models and tactical exercises. These training programs identified optimal escort formations, communication procedures, and attack responses for protecting convoys containing 50 or more merchant vessels. The psychological effect on German submarine crews extended beyond tactical frustration to include fundamental doubts about mission objectives. Personal correspondence intercepted from submarine personnel revealed growing awareness that convoy formations had evolved beyond the capabilities of existing German submarine tactics and technology. Morale reports from submarine bases documented declining volunteer rates and increasing requests for transfer to other naval assignments. The strategic implications of large convoy operations became apparent through statistical analysis of shipping losses and submarine effectiveness. German submarines, which had achieved devastating success rates during 1942, faced convoy formations that reduced attack opportunities while increasing defensive risks. The fundamental mathematics of submarine warfare had shifted decisively in favor of Allied shipping protection through formation procedures and escort capabilities. Allied naval intelligence analysis of intercepted German communications revealed growing frustration within submarine commands facing convoy operations that exceeded their tactical capabilities. Radio intercepts from U-boat headquarters documented strategic discussions acknowledging that large convoy formations had fundamentally altered Atlantic warfare dynamics in ways that German submarine forces could not effectively counter with existing equipment and procedures. The technological innovations accompanying large convoy formations included electronic warfare capabilities that disrupted German submarine communications and navigation systems. Radio jamming equipment aboard escort vessels interfered with submarine coordination efforts. Direction-finding gear allowed convoy escorts to locate German submarines attempting to shadow formation movements. The crew training programs established for merchant seamen sailing in large convoy formations provided instruction in formation procedures, emergency protocols, and defensive measures. Merchant marine training schools incorporated convoy operations into standard curricula, recognizing that large formation sailing had become the primary method for transatlantic cargo transportation. The logistical complexity of assembling and coordinating convoy formations containing 60 or more vessels required port facilities and administrative procedures that exceeded peacetime merchant marine operations. Convoy assembly ports like Halifax, New York, and Liverpool developed specialized facilities for organizing large formations, coordinating cargo loading, and synchronizing departure schedules for ships from multiple shipping lines and national registries. By autumn 1943, the transformation was complete. German submarine commanders who had once stalked individual merchant ships with predatory confidence now faced a maritime landscape fundamentally altered by American industrial capacity and Allied tactical innovation. The wolf packs that had terrorized Atlantic shipping lanes encountered convoy formations so massive and well protected that traditional submarine warfare became strategically obsolete. Captain Lieutenant Wolfgang Luth, one of Germany's most decorated submarine commanders, returned from his final patrol aboard U-181 with observations that shocked German naval leadership. The convoys he encountered in September 1943 included formations exceeding 80 vessels protected by escort groups larger than entire German destroyer flotillas. His patrol report documented the complete tactical reversal that had occurred in Atlantic warfare. Individual submarines could no longer achieve meaningful results against formations specifically designed to neutralize wolfpack operations. The statistical evidence told an undeniable story of strategic transformation. German submarine losses during the summer and autumn of 1943 reached levels that made continued operations unsustainable. 41 U-boats were lost in May alone, representing nearly half of all submarines operational in Atlantic waters. The casualty rates among experienced submarine crews eliminated the tactical expertise that had made German submarine operations devastatingly effective during 1940 through 1942. Admiral Karl Donitz, facing the collapse of his submarine warfare strategy, acknowledged the fundamental change in a directive to submarine commanders dated October 1943. The enemy's defensive measures have reached a level of effectiveness that renders our traditional tactics obsolete. Large convoy formations, protected by enhanced escort forces and continuous air coverage, present challenges that exceed our current tactical and technological capabilities. The admission represented a strategic defeat that would reshape German naval operations for the remainder of the war. The psychological transformation among German submarine personnel proved as significant as the tactical changes. Crew interviews conducted after the war revealed how encounters with massive convoy formations had shattered the confidence and aggressive spirit that had characterized German submarine operations during the war's early years. Men who had once approached merchant shipping with predatory certainty now described feelings of helplessness when facing formations that stretched beyond the horizon. Obermaschinist Friedrich Weber, captured after U-405 sinking in November 1943, described the demoralization that spread through submarine crews as massive convoy operations became standard Allied procedure. The individual ships that had provided vulnerable targets throughout 1942 had disappeared, replaced by organized formations that turned submarine attacks into suicide missions. The technological and numerical advantages that had favored German submarines were now overwhelmingly possessed by Allied escort forces.
The industrial implications extended far beyond immediate tactical considerations. American shipyards had achieved production rates that made tonnage warfare impossible for German submarines to sustain. By late 1943, Allied shipbuilding capacity exceeded German submarine sinking rates by margins that rendered the Battle of the Atlantic strategically unwinnable for Germany. The Liberty ship program alone was producing merchant vessels faster than the entire German submarine fleet could destroy them. The training programs established by Allied naval forces for convoy escort operations had created a generation of anti-submarine warfare specialists whose tactical expertise matched or exceeded German submarine crew capabilities. Officers like Commander Frederick Walker, whose escort groups had achieved remarkable success against German submarine attacks, developed tactical innovations that eliminated submarine advantages in night surface operations and coordinated wolfpack attacks. The technological evolution of convoy escort operations included radar systems, sonar equipment, and communications gear that provided detection and coordination capabilities far exceeding German submarine defensive measures. Escort carriers operating with large convoy formations extended air coverage throughout areas where German submarines had previously operated with impunity. The mid-Atlantic gap, which had provided sanctuary for submarine operations, disappeared under continuous aerial patrol by carrier-based aircraft. The strategic consequences of this transformation rippled through German military planning, as resources were diverted from submarine construction to other weapons programs. The Type 21 submarine program, intended to restore German tactical advantages through advanced technology, could not be completed in time to influence Atlantic warfare outcomes. German shipyards, damaged by Allied bombing and constrained by material shortages, could not produce submarines at rates sufficient to challenge convoy formations of increasing size and effectiveness. The human cost of this transformation fell heavily on German submarine crews, whose casualty rates during 1943 exceeded those of any other military service in any nation during the war. Of the 40,000 men who served in German submarines during World War II, 30,000 never returned from patrol. The tactical obsolescence of submarine warfare against large convoy formations contributed significantly to these devastating losses, as experienced crews attempted to execute attacks against formations specifically designed to counter their methods. The final irony of this maritime transformation lay in its thoroughness. German submarine crews, who had begun the war with technological superiority, tactical expertise, and strategic initiative, found themselves systematically outmatched by industrial capacity, tactical innovation, and coordinated Allied operations. The individual merchant ships that had provided vulnerable targets during the war's early years had evolved into convoy formations that turned submarine attacks from predatory hunting to desperate gambles against overwhelming odds. The legacy of this transformation extended beyond immediate wartime consequences to reshape post-war naval thinking about submarine warfare, merchant shipping protection, and industrial mobilization. The convoy formations that German submarine crews never expected to encounter proved that industrial capacity, properly coordinated and tactically employed, could overcome seemingly insurmountable military advantages through systematic application of resources and strategic planning. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.